Reminiscing. Hi guys.
Hey there, welcome back. I want to make a video series of us playing Five Nights at Freddy.
We do not qualify for ad campaign. Welcome back to Babel.
All right.
Hey guys.
Hello.
I'm in
Oh,
bed.
I forgot to... Hold on. Let me prop this thing up so it can actually hear me.
Oh. I am feeling lazy. It is currently almost 10 o'clock on a Thursday that we're recording this because we're busy girls.
We're cutting it close on this one, but...
That's okay.
Hello, welcome back to Babel. I'm Lucy.
I'm Amelia. Thank you guys for coming back.
Yeah, if you'd like to support us, you can follow us on Spotify, any of the platforms, rate us.
We also opened up listener support, as well as we do ads now. Please, no one be mad at us for that.
We put them at like the very beginning or the very end, so it's not going to be like
I'm sorry.
an
I know
ad break.
I know ads are annoying, but like we work so hard and we're trying to make some money. Also, that's very exciting because you have to meet some qualifications, and they had to like review our podcast and stuff.
That was so cool.
We're very excited. It's like we didn't even think we would get that far. So
I know, especially within like the first month.
yeah. Well, like when we
That was
talked about
awesome.
starting it, like my whole thing was I keep joking like we're gonna blow up so much and we're gonna get sponsored and have ads and be monetized, and like that happened. I mean we're not famous or like blowing up, but
We're not famous or sponsored, but we do have ads.
it's still like it doesn't need to be that big of a thing. It's just like super exciting for us. So thank you
We're
guys.
super excited about it, so thank you for listening. Listen all the way through those ads. You can turn the volume down. It's okay.
Listen to the episode like 10 times in a day, just turn down. So we get paid for every one.
I will say, I was listening to one podcast and they had ads on, and they were kind of talking about how they were getting like listeners were getting ads for like really right wing like propaganda stuff.
Why?
And I was like, I don't know, but like their podcast is like the complete opposite of that, and so I'm like nervous because I don't know if we get to choose what ads are in there.
I don't think we get to.
So I'm a little nervous, but
We'll have to listen and see.
yeah, I feel like Spotify ads though are just like for products. We have an interesting topic today,
We do.
but before we get into that, do you want to talk about what you've been listening to, reading, watching?
Yes. I've been watching Mindhunter. And by have been watching, I started it 2 hours ago.
What is that?
It's on Netflix. It's like a FBI crime show where like they're really trying to find out. It's fictional for the most part, I think. Actually, that could be a complete lie. I don't know. It's kind of true crime-ish. And Jonathan Groff plays the main FBI
Oh,
dude.
really?
Yeah, it's kind of
Wait.
weird.
I'm trying to picture his face in my head.
Hamilton.
Was he in that was he in a recent Cabin scary movie?
Yeah,
Cabin in the Woods, that was him?
that
Okay.
was him. Yeah, no, it's pretty good. I'm in the middle of
Did you ever
episode
see that
2.
movie?
No. Should I?
I didn't see it either.
Maybe we should both watch it and do a little review.
We should. We could do it next week.
Yeah. Okay. I've been playing The Last of Us, which Lucy is
Guys,
absolutely
this is my
thrilled
dream
about.
come true. Like, okay, I've convinced a lot of people to watch the show. I haven't gotten anyone to play the game yet, just because if you don't have a PS4 or 5, if you don't have a PlayStation, you're going to spend a lot of money to play a game, so no one's done it.
Right.
And I'm so happy. Did Oscar already have one?
Yeah, he already had one. We just bought the game.
That's so cool.
Yeah, no.
And neither of you like knew anything about it?
No. I did know what happens in the very beginning. I won't spoil for the listeners, but I was like, oh, yeah, this person's done. And he thought I was joking. And then 10 minutes later, he was like, oh my God, you weren't kidding. I was like, that's about all I know.
I really, really want to watch the show when we're up there.
I
Because
think we
there's a part
should.
that's not in the game that's in one of the episodes, and it's like my favorite episode, and I'm so
Okay.
excited.
We'll have to watch it. But no, we're at
Homework
the
for the
part.
listeners as well.
Yeah. Bill just showed up. I had to fight the zombies
What?
upside down.
Yeah, you guys got far fast.
Did we? See, it's
Yeah.
really funny because he plays a lot of video games. I do not. So, I mean, we're both kind of learning the game because, like, controls and stuff. But it's also not a two-player game. So, like, we kind
Yeah.
of just take turns. But I like just watching, so it doesn't bother me. But there are times I'll be in the middle of, like, trying to fight people and I just throw the controller at him. I'm like, do it.
It gets really stressful.
But also, like, whenever it's my turn, it takes me like 10 minutes to get through one room or like one, like, because I'm just
Do you like have to stop and collect all the supplies and stuff?
yeah, I
'Cause
have to
like,
do that.
have to inspect every single room, make sure I'm not missing anything.
I have to do that. And I also just need to like think about what I'm doing. Especially when I realize there are like bad guys around, I like need to stop and be like, okay, here's my like whatever.
Yeah, especially when they come out of nowhere and there are a lot of them, it really stresses me out.
It's honestly, it's really fun though. This is my first like real video game that I've played, and it is really fun.
I'm playing The Last of Us 2 right now. Just you wait until you get done with that game, because the second one, the graphics are so much clearer,
Are they?
which is a plus because I get to see my love Ellie in like HD, but also like the infected look so much scarier. So when they're really coming at you, like I'm a lot more tense and on edge during the second game.
Anyway, moving on, music wise, I've been listening to a lot of Muna. Sammy is my go-to comfort artist. New album from the Japanese house, In the End It Always Does. Really good.
Oh, is that the one with the blue circle on the front?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I've seen a bunch of people talking about it.
It's really good. My favorites are Touching Yourself, Sad to Breathe, Morning Pages, which features Muna, and Boyhood. All very good songs. And then I just started Elliot Page's memoir. I mentioned last time that I was reading a Riley Sager thriller, and I have since finished that book. And I need to share most of the details of this book with everyone. But first I'm going to let Lucy go because
Okay.
I'll try not to take too much time on it, but oh my gosh, guys, please. It was so bad. Anyway.
Okay, I'll be quick. All of the shows that I really like are like in between seasons right now, so I don't really have much to watch. I've just been watching YouTube. I've been listening to Dan Reeder still. The Barbie soundtrack.
Is it
I'm
out?
so excited for the movie. There are some of the songs are out right now.
Also, speaking of Taylor's version tonight.
Yes, I'm so... I can't think about it for too long or else I'll like explode, but did you see that Better Than Revenge, the words are changed?
I did see that, yeah. I don't know
Which
how I feel about that.
I have mixed feelings.
Right. Because on one side,
But-
feminism, but on the other side, she wants to own her music and stay true to her music and herself. I've seen a lot of, like, interesting perspectives on it.
We'll see. I've been listening to Claro's like recorded at Electric Lady like live studio album.
Yeah.
That one's really good. That's pretty much it. I've been listening to The Police a good bit.
I love the Police. But yeah, I do need to mention mine again. So it's called The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. It's like a thriller. Just kind of, we're talking like very cliche. And I was pretty far in when we talked about it last time. It takes me like 2 weeks to read a single book these days, which is like kind of sad, but whatever. I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was like 50 or 60% of the way. I also I was reading it on my Kindle, and it always like says the percentage and also like how much time you have left in the book. So I'll like say like, oh, I only have like 2 hours left, and people are like, what are you talking about? Anyway,
That's nice though. I love
It is
looking
really
at stats
nice.
like that.
It'll tell you like how much time you have in a chapter too. So like if I want to start something, but it's like 20 minutes left in chapter, and I like don't want to do that much, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice. Anyway, um, so I got okay. I don't even know where to start with this. Essentially, it is about this woman who's like, she was like a stage actress, and her mom was a very famous actress as well. And they have this like, they have like, okay, so they're like famous, right? And they have this house in Vermont on the lake, and she kind of grew up there. But flash forward to the present, her husband drowned in that lake.
Ooh. This sounds like a Southern folklore story.
But wait.
Okay.
Her husband drowned in the lake and he died, and it was very, very sad. And so she's like an alcoholic and not doing well at all. And her mom, like, she got fired from her jobs, and like there was a bunch of bad press. So her mom was essentially like, "You're doing time out at the lake house." So she's like at the lake house by herself, and there's like,
she's at the lake house where her husband died.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Oh,
to
okay.
keep her out of the spotlight and help her recover from her alcoholism.
Let's send her to the place where her trauma occurred.
Exactly. Anyway, so she has like two neighbors on either side of her. One's like the flirty neighbor, and one's like a friend of the family. And then across the lake is an ex-model and her husband, who's like a big tech bro. Whatever. We love the tech bros.
Do we?
No, we don't. And essentially, what happens is the main character, her name's Casey, rescues Catherine, who is the ex-model wife, from drowning. She saves her from drowning in the lake one day. And so they kind of become friends. Catherine's kind of strange. Like, you can tell something's kind of off. She hints to, like, her marriage isn't doing well. And, like, the husband isn't great. So basically what happens is, like, Catherine just mysteriously disappears one day, and Casey's, like, convinced it's the husband, because it turns out Catherine has, like, all the money in the relationship. So Casey's convinced it's the husband, and she spends, like, the entire book trying to prove that it's him, and flirty neighbor helps here and there. So I get, like, 90% through this book, and she's, like, convinced, like, her full theory is Tom has been slowly poisoning Catherine, and she's convinced, like, Catherine is dead. He murdered her, and she's trying to get proof of that. And then at some point it comes up that friendly neighbor was, like, in love with, or flirty neighbor was, like, in love with Catherine. So then for a minute you think it's him, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a kind of nice twist.
Flirty neighbor was in love with Catherine, but he was flirting with the main character as well?
Yes, but he was in love with Catherine before. Like, it was all in the past. Okay. He was like, no, like, it's not what you think. Like, he had, like, hidden the fact that they were close. And so I was like, oh, that could be a good twist. Like, if it ends up being him, like, I'd be satisfied with that. Mm-hmm. Again, like, I don't have high expectations for this book. Anyway. So.
Is it, like, well written? It's just an easy read.
It's like no big deal. Okay. I kind of did like the character development at times. Like, I felt like it was very put together, and I could really visualize, like, what I was reading. But anyway, so I'm, like, almost done with this book, and it's all very, like, strict crime novel. Like, there's nothing out of the ordinary. And then I get to, like, the last little bit of it, and Casey eventually finds Catherine, who is still alive and tied up. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. This is really important. Sorry. I knew I was going to mess this up.
You're good.
A detective that's helping Casey try to figure out what's happening to Catherine reveals that, like, there are a bunch of murders of young girls in the area. So they think they're looking for a serial killer at the same time, and they think potentially it could be Tom, who is the husband. Okay. So that's just kind of a detail that's in there, in the mix. But she finds Catherine, who is alive, and, like, Tom has her tied up in, like, one of the abandoned houses. And Casey's he's like feeding her. He's just keeping her down there. But he was also like posting from her social media as if she was alive. And yeah, so it's like,
so
okay, so it
scary.
was him, right? And so Casey like finds Catherine, and Tom's down there too, and is like confronting him. She's like, well, like, I knew it. What are you doing? He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm trying to keep her safe, and I'm trying to keep everyone else safe. And Casey's like, what are you talking about? He's like, that's not Catherine. But like, it clearly was Catherine. Basically, when Catherine drowned in the lake that day, Casey's husband's soul entered her. So for the whole rest of the book, Catherine is the husband, is like possessed by the husband.
Weird.
And so I got there, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, it turned very like cringy, sci-fi towards the end.
It sounds like a worse version of Get Out.
Yeah, it like was not, it was like, okay. But then you find out that the husband was the serial killer. Casey found out about it, and she drowned him.
I'm on Casey's side in this.
But then, so the rest, I feel like I'm doing another Am I the Asshole? Anyway, so basically the rest of the book was really cringy and really cheesy, and it honestly like strayed so far away that I was like, I want to like this and I can't at all. But essentially, like, also the souls can enter other people. Like, he can breathe his soul into her. So she has him do that.
I hate when they like break the rules that they are initially set. Like he entered her because she was drowning in the lake, and he also drowned in the lake. But now he can breathe on anyone, and they're him.
Right. So
that's weird.
Essentially it ends like Casey, because she killed him, like the girls who were murdered never got justice. So she was like, okay, well, like, he's back, so I'm gonna have him show me where the bodies are so I can like get some closure for these families. And then she has him have his soul enter, like, she tricks him into taking his soul and tries to drown herself. And then Catherine, who comes back as real Catherine once the soul is gone, saves Casey from drowning. So the husband's soul is back in the lake.
Oh.
So that...
Did they find the bodies?
They did. And, like, that's all.
Okay.
She's making dinner in her house. Like, it's great. Her family's there. Story's done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong. She's in her kitchen by herself, like, doing whatever, reminiscing. When she, like, puts a clue together.
Reminiscing on killing her husband.
I guess.
And getting possessed by him again.
And she puts something together where she realizes, like, holy shit, Tom was trying to poison Catherine still. And, of course, like, right when she realizes that, she goes to call someone, and it's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And he's, like, behind her with a knife. Like, so, like, essentially he was trying to poison Catherine, but then all the weird stuff happened at the same time. So he was still trying to get away with it.
That's
Anyway,
too much.
Casey kills him in self-defense, and his soul also enters the lake.
How about just sell that house?
Yeah, anyway,
Let's sell that lake house and get out of there.
Sorry, I spent so much time talking about this book, and I just fully spoiled it for everyone, which is, like, kind of evil, but also, you don't need to be reading that, honestly. I kind
especially
of
if it's,
made
like,
me,
not good writing.
it made me hate everything. I don't, like, I, like, called my mom and ranted to her for, like, 30 minutes before I even finished the book. Like, once I got to that part, because I was so upset, because I was like, no way this is real. But it was, like, real. And he tried to run it. It was like he ran out of ideas for this book.
I know. I just hate when it's like they try to, like, keep shocking you, and then at this point it's like it doesn't even make sense anymore.
I
like,
love a twist, but it needs to make sense. And the whole book up until that point was, like, very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for them to throw that at you, like, possession.
Yeah, don't throw something supernatural, like, in the last 20 pages.
Right. And there were, like, no, even, like, he would bring up details from earlier in the book to be like, oh, this could allude to, like, no one is going to guess that someone's soul is, you know, like,
Yeah.
He's like pulling stuff out of his ass trying to make it make sense.
I know. If you don't plant things early or well, like, it's not going to make sense in the end.
Right. Anyway, I
frustrating.
spent over 10 minutes talking about that, but I just really wanted to because it was wild. Yep, definitely.
But sometimes it is good to read just like a quick read, not the best book you've ever read, but still good.
True. All right, let's get into it.
Well, I'm sorry you felt betrayed.
It's okay. I really did. I have trust issues now, but that's okay.
All right. Today we're going to talk about attachment styles and attachment theory.
Yay!
It's something we're both interested in.
Very psychology of us.
Yeah, I know. Like, what? I learned a lot about this in my social work class, and I had done a little bit of research on it before just because, I don't know, in our friendship, I feel like we talk about it a lot.
We do. I've also, like, this is something that I notice a lot in my own life, and, like, being able to notice it and kind of find coping skills and strategies to, like, counteract it.
Yeah.
And I've had, like, therapists talk to me about it, too. So, like, it's something that comes up a lot for me. I actually am waiting for a book from the library called Attached, which is about attachment styles. And one of my therapists 2 years ago told me to read it, and then I never did. But I'm kind of in the mood for something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'll just explain, like, what attachment theory is before we get into it, because we each, like, kind of researched each other's attachment style. The idea for modern attachment theory came out of John Bowlby. I don't know if that's how you say his last name. It's whoa. Sorry, it's late. Bowlby.
I love that this is the episode we're trying to do late at night.
I know, like, the one, like, informational, educational one, we're doing it this late.
Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Yeah, maybe we'll have our thoughts in order. I'm just going to say Bowlby. The theory came out of his acknowledgement of Freud's theories. So he didn't, like, completely agree, but he did, like, realize the, like, connection or correlation between, like, parent-child relationships to adult relationships later in life. So how it's similar how a infant and their caregiver, main caregiver, the way they interact will kind of come up again in their adult relationships once the infant is grown up. And I just wanted to note that the theory is still, like, not fully formed just because there's not enough research on, like, the adult side of that, like how attachment styles can be passed down and how, like, when that infant grows up, you know, can they change their attachment style? There's a lot of debate on whether they can change the attachment style, whether it's just something that stays the same. So Bowlby called it attachment behavioral system. Bowlby's theory was that children come into the world biologically pre-programmed to form attachments. So, like, before they're even born, they're kind of like, their attachment style's already set and predetermined, and, like, there's not much they can do to change that. That theory has kind of been debunked and disregarded. But a lot of his other work has been really useful. I would say most people don't agree with that now. They kind of talk about early experiences in childhood, how a child reacts and interacts with their parents or caregiver. It doesn't necessarily have to be like your parent. It could be like an uncle or, you know, a relative or just like a adult figure in your life who has significantly shaped the way you view relationships and the way a child reacts to getting their needs met. That's that on Bowlby. He paved the way, but he didn't fully hit the mark by talking about predetermined attachment style. Mary Ainsworth, she's important to note. She gets left out a lot, but she was the one who
because she's a woman. The women
because
always
she's a
get
woman.
left out.
Because she's a woman. She is the one who kind of said, well, actually, I think it's the child's attachment style depends on their mother's behavior towards them. And she just said mother. I would say any caregiver. So the biggest experiment that was done for attachment styles is the little baby example. Have you heard of this before?
I have, yeah.
Basically, a baby's reaction to their parents' departure and return says a lot about how the baby is used to their caregiver attending to their needs. So what they did was they had the baby in a room and their parent was in there with them. The parent left for an extended amount of time and then came back, and they recorded the baby's mood and behavior with the parent in the room, when the parent left, and when the parent came back. This study says that babies who are securely attached understand their parent as someone they can rely on, so they become concerned when they go and are comforted when they come back. So, secure attachment style, nothing's really wrong. You feel secure in your relationship. You're going to freak out a little bit when your parent leaves. When they come back, you're comforted. There's anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, which is kind of, there's no way to predict behavior. It's all over the place. It's erratic. And it usually comes from a big place of trauma. Mm-hmm. So if there's repeated trauma throughout childhood, you're most likely going to have a disorganized attachment style.
No, anxious and avoidant are the two most common. Those are the ones that are.
58% of adults are securely attached. Let's raise that number, folks.
So 42% of us are messed up.
Anxious attachment style, the babies who tended to have this anxious attachment, when their parents would leave, they would get really, really stressed out. When their parents would come back and comfort them, they were still stressed out. Like they weren't comforted by their parents there because they were worried that they would leave again, or like they just didn't have a sense of comfort or
Guess
security
who that was?
when their parent returned.
Guess who gave all the daycare people hell all the time and all the babysitters?
And then avoidant kind of didn't really have a reaction no matter what the parents did. So they seemed unfazed.
Independent.
When the parent left, they seemed unfazed and almost like standoffish when the parent arrived. So that's kind of the study. Disorganized attachment styles were all over the place. There wasn't really a way to determine. Keeping that in mind, research has shown that attachment styles can affect adult relationships later in life, like communication, the risk of relationship violence, especially I feel like anxious attachment styles. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's a higher chance of abuse in those relationships, and then overall marriage quality. So, do you want to talk about avoidant first, or should I go into anxious?
I can go into avoidant. We're yelling first. We're tired girls. Okay.
Sleepy.
So, I got a lot of my information on avoidant attachment styles from the Attachment Project. I like this website a lot. It talks about all the attachment styles. You could take a little quiz if you want to know which one you have. And then they also have like some coping things you can do if you'd like. Mm-hmm. So avoidant attachment style, also known as avoidant dismissive. And in childhood, it was often referred to as anxious avoidant. But yeah, avoidant or dismissive. It's said with the theory of the effect of like parents and caregivers, that says that parents who are strict and emotionally distant don't tolerate feelings that well, have certain expectations for their child to be super independent and tough, kind of, not, I don't want to say not nurturing, but kind of like dismisses feelings, or is kind of like, that's life, get over it, like just doesn't really entertain the full expanse of a child's emotions and their needs emotionally, and then kind of promote their independence to a little bit of extreme. Or a child who just grows up super independent can end up with an avoidant attachment style. As adults, these people appear super confident and self-sufficient and independent, but they don't really tolerate emotional or physical intimacy well, and might not be able to build healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. In a workplace or school setting, they're seen as the independent lone wolf, which, that can be a good or a bad thing. So yeah, that's a very like generalized way
Mm-hmm.
you could maybe view avoidant attachment styles. Also, I don't know if we preface this. This is Lucy's attachment style. She's an
Hey,
avoidant girly.
hey.
Also, none of these are a bad thing. I feel like we like it
Yeah,
can be
it's not
really
necessarily like obviously attachment styles can affect your relationships and make them a lot harder, but also like parents have so many different styles of raising children that like no parent is going to get it right.
right. It's also
Um
like this is not for us to say that our parents did anything wrong or it's their fault. Like
no,
it's just
cuz I had an amazing childhood and
right.
I was
Exactly. Me
so
too.
like lucky in
It's
the parents
also
that I got.
like it's your teachers. It's like it's just the way you were influenced growing up. You know, there's
Yeah.
no. I do like the theory of child adult caregiver relationships affecting it, but honestly, like I'm more interested to see if that theory develops so we can see more of an environmental approach and less like
Yeah.
it's just your mother or something like that.
Mhm.
Because
Especially because I mean, if you think about it, like so much of our time as a child is spent in school.
mm-hmm.
So I would be interested to see like how much of that was influenced by your teachers or your peers or just any adult role model that you looked up to as a child or was in charge of you.
I'm really interested to know like how peers affect it because I know, especially through middle and high school, like I had a lot of friendships, relationships, like things that like the way I went about those or was treated in those most definitely affected like how I kind of deal with those things now.
Yeah.
Which again
No, I
could
get that.
stem from childhood as well, but
Yeah.
I'm interested to see kind of the development of that theory. Anyway,
There's a lot of
no, you're
debate
good.
on whether or not you can change your attachment style, and I think whether you can or not, you can learn to live with it and learn to catch yourself when you start slipping into, oh, this is making me anxious, like I'm just gonna bail. Like I'm just
Yes,
gonna clock
yeah.
out,
I'm
say goodbye to this
definitely
relationship.
yeah, I'm definitely like much more confident in how I handle it, but I also do have phases of life where it just kind of like comes out terribly.
Yeah.
Lucy's seen a few of those. Okay. Some more symptoms of avoidant attachment in adults. Um, might be pretty social and easygoing, fun to be around. So might have a lot of friends or partners, so they're not necessarily alone or lonely. But they tend to be super independent with high self esteem and don't really rely on others for reassurance or emotional support, which to other people can come off as avoidant. Like, that's really the only word for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, we'll get into this more. Like, we've seen this with each other. I'm anxious, you're avoidant. If an avoidant attachment style is really work at play, to an anxiously attached person,
Mm-hmm.
that can get their
That can
does that make
affect the
sense?
way they think. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
and vice
I
versa.
Yeah. In my class, they kind of talked about how anxious and avoidant are always like attracted to each other.
Yeah,
And they really shouldn't be because it's just going to make them sink into their styles even more and affect. Because if you have someone avoiding and you have someone who like needs reassurance, that's not going to work.
I think there
Um,
definitely is like if you're aware of it and taking steps to like really say what your needs are and kind of set boundaries with those people, I think it's doable.
yeah, because we like all we got to do is talk about it.
Yeah, we have
You know?
had some moments of like both of us not doing well at the same time, and you get super avoidant, and I get super anxious, and like,
Mm-hmm.
please, I need you. Um, but yeah, just kind of expressing that and
Yeah.
figuring out something that works for both of you.
Yeah, especially like if you're avoidant, recognizing your needs are not the only thing that needs to be met in a relationship. And so trying to stay present in a relationship is hard, but
Is
it's vital if you want to keep people in your life.
Yeah, also with anxious attachment, it's hard to self-reassure. That's something
Yeah.
I've been working on a lot. Reassurance is like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, you'll talk about that though.
I did just want to say before we continue, like, not every single one of these, like, traits is going to apply to everyone. Like, everyone's going to be different.
This is all very generalized.
Because I did see a lot of things that said that really avoidant people have negative views of other people and, like, positive self views.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like that doesn't apply to me at all. So I feel like it's not you. I feel like anytime we try to put people into a box,
right,
it's not going to fit for everyone. So, like,
right,
these aren't actually the only two attachment styles ever. Everyone's going to be slightly different. But if we're trying to categorize people, these are the traits that we see most in people.
I think we need to drop everything we're doing and, like, just become psychologists and, like, do work on attachment styles, because this is really fun.
It is really fun. I love doing little educational ones.
Also, again, why did we choose to do this one late at night? But I know, we're killing it. It's okay. I think we should we'll keep going. You can take this out if you want, but I think we should do a part 2 at some point, especially if I read that book. Yeah. I could take some notes. We could do a part 2.
Yeah.
Just because, we talk about it all the time. And it's something that I'm always looking into. I think it's super interesting. Anyway.
Especially, like, as you get older and you want to know more about yourself and, like, understand where your feelings or your habits are coming from, it's really nice to know what your attachment style is and where it comes from so that you can better your relationships later in life. Yeah.
I think everyone, like, kind of self-work happens at different points in everyone's life. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I decided I need to do so much of it at one time.
Let's knock it out before we reach 25.
Yeah, Anyway, so this is just something. Also, like, stuff like this can really help me and so many other people feel seen. Like, I feel the same with, like, Enneagram and personality quizzes and even Zodiac. Like, I feel understood and understand that there's a reason behind kind of the way I think. It makes me feel like I have a little bit more control.
Yeah, with anxiety especially, like, you're having all these, like, racing crazy thoughts. You tend to think, like, I'm crazy. Like, I'm alone in this. And no one else has ever thought like this. Like, I'm crazy for acting this way or, like, needing this much reassurance. But it's just not true. It's just it's just a part of us.
This last little bit I'll talk about before you do anxious. This is about how avoidant adults behave in friendships and relationships. For a lot of them, social interactions and bonds remain mostly on the surface. If they do go below that, it takes a bit to get there, where it takes some, like, real work. It has to become super deep. These types of people may let you be around them, but may not always let you in. They tend to avoid strong displays of closeness and intimacy. They avoid, and as soon as things get serious, they're likely to kind of close off and, like, back into the corner a little bit. At this point, people might end relationships because, if someone is coming to avoid a partner and saying, like, you're pissing me off, why is this happening? That avoidant person is only going to become more avoidant in some situations. So they start drifting and distancing themselves. Not all of this is to say, like, here's your attachment style and, like, all your friendships and relationships are doomed. That's not it at all. This is just,
it's just, like, it's good to be aware of your tendencies and to know when to, like, catch yourself in that.
Right.
Not to say everything's gonna fail, because it's not true.
Yeah. They're avoidant. I don't know what else to say. Avoidant and distance.
They're avoidant.
They're avoidant. Really just people who like self-rely and don't really open up to other people and rely on other people. Um, yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, that was so good.
Thanks.
Okay, let me talk about anxious attachment style, which is
Let's let Lucy
if
air
you
all this
didn't
out.
if you didn't get the hint, this is Amelia's attachment style.
Yes, it is.
Hey,
I think
hey.
if you know nothing about attachment styles, like someone would still be able to peg my attachment style.
Yeah. All right. So this is a quote from one of the articles. I'll have them linked down below. I don't remember which one this is. It says, quote, anxiety assesses the degree to which individuals worry about being underappreciated or abandoned by their romantic partners. Highly anxious individuals are heavily invested in their relationships, and they yearn to get closer to their partners emotionally to feel more secure. Anxious individuals harbor negative self-views and guarded but hopeful views of their romantic partners. Does that sound familiar?
You know, whatever.
So it's kind of obvious by the name. They get really nervous in relationships. They're the kind of person who constantly needs reassurance, is always checking in, making sure they're good, we're okay.
Yep.
I feel like if you have a friend who constantly asks, are you mad at me? Like, are we okay?
You get it.
I feel
No.
like they've got anxious attachment style.
Yeah,
Give them
this
some
is
love.
friendships too. Like I know a lot of the research is
Yeah,
done on
no.
relationships, but I've seen this in friendships more almost.
Definitely. Especially because, like, our generation, the time in our lives when we get into relationships has been pushed back so late. I don't know if you've heard that research, but, like, people are getting into relationships and having their first relationships later and later.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, at least from my point of view, I have a lot of really close friends, and most of the people I know have a lot of really close friendships before they even have a romantic relationship. So I feel like this applies just as much, if not more, to all kinds of friendships, platonic relationships as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so anxious individuals typically question their worth, worry about losing their partners. They remain super, like, hyper aware and vigilant of signs that their partners might be, like, pulling away from them or, like, suddenly feeling different about the relationship. Women are more likely to have anxious attachment styles than men are, which honestly doesn't surprise me, just with, like, our culture and the way that men are taught and the way that women are taught. Because I don't know, we don't really have to get into the whole, like, men are raised thinking that, like, having sex is, like, a really big goal to reach, and it's awesome, and if you could do it with more people the better.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's a prize, and women are taught, like, it's very sacred and special, and, like, you need to find one person, and if you don't, you're a slut.
Yeah.
So
Also,
like, just the way that we view relationships and the way that men get into relationships versus women
that's
is
kind
so
of
different.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is just making me even more interested about, like, a social aspect on attachment styles developing,
Yeah.
because everything you just said is, like, societal constructs and, like, the way we're kind of told, not even directly by caregivers or parents, but just by, like, the world and the way things are presented to us, of, like, especially with gender stereotypes, like, this is what it is. And
Yeah.
so I'm not even kidding. I think the next theory needs to be the Amelia theory. The Amelia and the Babel theory.
Literally.
Anyway.
I also think, like, just thinking about how, I don't know if this plays into it at all, but I've been thinking recently, because I don't know what I was watching something, and it talked about, like, having children and how women are really encouraged to settle down early and have children, because they're basically a ticking time bomb. Like, once you reach a certain age, you won't be able to. And men are encouraged to, like, sleep around and like, wait till way later in life to have children. So I can see how women do tend to have more anxious attachment styles in relationships and are insecure about their partner leaving or just not having safety in the relationship and being able to rely on partners. And of course, this is just talking about straight relationships. That's a whole nother thing we could talk about, is anxious attachment and attachment styles in straight versus queer relationships. So it's interesting. It opens up a lot more questions. I know. I feel like we need to do a part 2. Okay, we are pretty getting pretty long, so I feel like we can wrap it up there. We'll have the links copied down below. You can also just go into Google Scholar. If you're college, go to JSTOR, look up attachment styles, try to figure out where you fall in that, and maybe you could do a little self-reflection.
Yeah. Also, we will definitely keep tabs on new information we find. If there's anything we want to share again, I think it'd be fun to look into how queer versus straight relationships and attachment styles and how those work.
Yeah.
And then also a little more casually talking about each other.
Yeah.
I think could be cool too.
Yeah, no, definitely. We should do a part 2 when we're not half asleep.
Yeah, sorry guys. But
sorry if it sounded a little rambly. We're trying
I think
our
we
best here. I need to get the podcast up in just a few hours.
You honestly, if this needs to come out tomorrow night, that's totally fine. They can wait.
I'm not too stressed about it. Y'all can wait.
You can also wait because we have so much coming at you next week. Lucy gets here on Tuesday.
In-person episodes, possibly a video episode.
Possibly.
We're
special guests.
A lot of fun. Special guests.
Very exciting.
Oh, thank you for being I don't know. I feel like we got a lot of listens on our last episode. We rose in the ranks.
I like that
of our episodes.
But yeah, we have lots of fun stuff coming.
Anywho, thank you so much for listening.
We'll see you soon.
We'll see you very soon with a lot of fun things coming. We love you.
Go journal about your attachment styles.
Journal about your attachment styles. Do some self-reflection. Meditate out in nature. Get off your phone. Learn more about yourself. All right.
Hell yeah.
We love you.
Okay. Mwah. Goodbye.